Just get along in the overgrown road that we follow.
My name is Laura Fisher Smith. I graduated in the class of 1967, and I live currently in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, my grandfather's wife was a counselor who helped people match their children's interests and abilities and natures with schools all over the United States. And I came from a very, very small town in eastern Washington state. I had finished all the classes in the high school that I was going to. It was a public school, very small. So this was recommended by her to my parents. So when my dad and I came to see the school, check it out and see if it was something appropriate, I felt as though I were at home, that I had been here before, and it was, okay, Dad, I'll see you. I just wanted to stay, and fortunately, I was accepted mid-year in 1966, which was unusual at that time for them to accept half-year students. So I was only here at Verde Valley for a year and a half until I graduated. To me, it was an opening of the world, because in the small school that I went to previously, there were no classes, there were no art classes, for instance. There's no horseback riding, which I adored. There was no art, we had all the other things that I had already taken, and I loved the casual and yet intimate is maybe too strong a word, relationship between the students and the teachers, to call the teachers by their first names, or it was just like a world had opened to me, and I sensed it immediately. Also, of course, the beauty of the school. It just seemed like possibilities had opened up for me. Well, I think the most important way is probably, I hope, a sensitivity to other cultures and other people who might not look, sound, or speak the way others of us do in our current culture. I hope that a compassionate heart was, if not established here, at least supported and grown here. I think Verde Valley has always been in my heart since those days so many years ago, 50 years ago. Maybe not in the forefront of my thinking all the time, but it's still there, and it's still important to me. I would say, number one, Trudy and David Miller were teachers for a few years, right in the time when I was here, and we are still friends after all these years. There were some other students, such as Nick Schock, Fred Beach, Jim Barlow, who were friends. In fact, I think it's interesting that Nick and Jim and Fred, after we graduated in June of '67, came to eastern Washington and worked in the harvest with my dad. So they had quite an experience of driving truck, driving combine. I know that it was impactful for them, and it was great to have 4 Verde Valley School people in this tiny town for a few weeks in the summer of 67. They were great workers. My dad had a policy of inviting people who otherwise in the course of their lives would not have a chance to do that kind of work, so that would inform their lives. And I have a cousins for whom that's been very important, and also these 3 young men who came from Verde Valley. And I know that one of them, Jim Barlow, has made soil his life's work, and maybe in part because of that time that he had in Washington.
It doesn't need to be one.
The art studio. Yep. Nassan Abiskaroon Gobran was the art teacher here, who also started the Sedona Art Barn, and was an internationally known sculptor, was very influential. Ceramics, art, that was where I wanted to be. I had a great aunt who encouraged me to be an artist, so I had lots of materials, but I didn't have any instruction or other people to interact with who wanted to do art or craft, which I did become a potter years later, and still that art and craft dichotomy is, I think that there is no separation between art and craft for me. But so I felt like, again, a kid in a candy store. I just was so excited every day to get up and go to the art classes, and yeah, so it was the art room, or the horses, but the art. The first field trip I did was Canyon de Chelly. I had no idea where Canyon de Chelly was or what it was. I got here, and like the next day we left in the buses to go to Canyon de Chelly. So there was that. I went to junior year, I went to the Acoma Reservation, and senior year I went to Oaxaca with those of us who didn't stay in families. There was I think we took Brenda all the way down and all the way back. That was a very long trip. Those are the ones I remember taking. The growth of the individual student was incredibly important to the staff. They were very relational, and if I don't have a particular anecdote, forgive me, but it's more of a global feeling of what was important to Ham Warren, what was important to the teachers that were gathered from all over the country and in some cases the world. It was so incredibly unique an experience that I do talk about the field trips. I would talk about the fact that we worked to maintain the school, that we had work jobs, and in those days I don't think there were very many schools who did that, if any. I would rave about the school to anybody who would listen, even now. And I would encourage parents to consider it for students, for their children who they think might enjoy a truly exceptional, world-class education. Yes, I would. I was looking at the school yearbooks, which I still have from all those years ago, and my memory of the things that I did, especially the extracurricular things, I would tell myself, go for more. Go do the choral work, do the music, do the art, do everything you can get your hands on. Not only studying, don't ignore your studies of course, but I would tell her, that young kid from a tiny town and dusty town in eastern Washington, this is the place to try everything that's offered. Don't just do the things you think you might be good at.
Visions made